The world froze when breaking news cut across every screen. A gavel struck in a courtroom as cameras flashed, chaos erupting with reporters shouting questions. Olivia Steele said, "This is a nightmare." The actress once crowned America's sweetheart, now stood accused of crimes darker than scandal. Gasps filled the chamber when a prosecutor read the charges. James Carter said, "She built her empire on lies." The jury looked stunned as whispers echoed like thunder. Emma Clark said, "We never saw this coming." Once trusted faces now stared at her with betrayal in their eyes. Olivia's trembling hands clutched the wooden bench. Reporters outside screamed headlines into microphones. David King said, "This is the trial of the decade." Paparazzi swarmed the courthouse doors. Olivia's mascara-streaked face lifted to the ceiling lights as the truth she tried to bury broke free. The judge banged the gavel again, silencing the storm for only a moment before everything shattered. The headlines screamed louder than any verdict. Outside the courthouse, the world turned into a battlefield of microphones and lenses. Olivia Steele whispered, "They want my blood." Crowds of strangers jeered, waving posters with her face slashed in red ink. Emma Clark said, "You can't let them see you break." Police barricades trembled under the weight of the crowd as David King's voice boomed across live television. James Carter said, "This is only the beginning." Olivia's once adored name now carried venom, her fall painted as entertainment. A storm brewed in the gray sky, echoing her unraveling world. Inside the press conference room, silence was impossible. Journalists shouted over each other as Olivia sat at a long table with cameras aimed like rifles. Olivia Steele said, "I have nothing to hide." Her cracked voice betrayed her. Emma Clark squeezed her arm, whispering hope through clenched teeth. David King said, "America deserves answers." James Carter's statement played on screens behind them, accusing her of deception. Flashes burned every second, turning her shame into spectacle. Her breath faltered, each inhale drowned by another question hurled like a stone. The judge's gavel echoed again, this time behind closed doors. Olivia's legal team whispered frantic strategies, but she heard none of it. Olivia Steele said, "They've already convicted me in their eyes." James Carter outside declared to cameras, "Justice will not be silenced." Emma Clark's hand trembled as she held Olivia's shoulder. In the hallway, jurors walked past, avoiding her gaze. The world outside had become a circus, but here in the narrow chamber, silence pressed like a suffocating fog. By nightfall, the courthouse lights burned like watchtowers. Olivia sat in the back of a black SUV, face reflected in tinted glass. Olivia Steele whispered, "I don't know if I can survive this." Emma Clark said, "You must." Outside, protesters waved signs, some crying, some screaming. David King's broadcast rang out on nearby radios, his words sharper than knives. James Carter's name trended online, painted as the hero. Inside the vehicle, silence thickened as the city's neon lights flickered across her tear-stained face. Before scandal stained her name, Olivia Steele was the embodiment of a dream. She walked red carpets glowing with starlight, adored by millions. Olivia Steele said, "This world made me, and I gave them everything." Magazine covers immortalized her smile. Emma Clark said, "They called you untouchable." Producers fought to cast her, fans screamed her name, and the media painted her as flawless. James Carter, even then, studied her from afar, noting every slip of imperfection. Olivia believed her crown was unshakable. Yet behind champagne glasses and flashing bulbs, cracks hid in shadows. The controlling lover whispered doubt in her ear, contracts signed in desperation, lay buried in safe boxes. Olivia Steele said, "I was chasing immortality, but I never saw the knives behind their smiles." The public adored her transformation from struggling actress to global icon. Olivia Steele once slept on studio floors, clinging to scripts. Olivia Steele said, "I fought for every role they said I couldn't play." The world saw her as a phoenix rising from ashes. Emma Clark reminded her, "They loved you because you were one of them once." Every interview fed the narrative of resilience. Yet fame sharpened envy. Rivals whispered she was too perfect. Lovers questioned her loyalty. In secret, Olivia grew desperate to stay at the top, agreeing to contracts with hidden clause. David King said on television she was the symbol of ambition, and ambition has teeth. Success brought walls instead of freedom. Olivia Steele dined in velvet halls, yet slept in loneliness. Olivia Steele said, "They see me shining, but they don't hear me crying." Paparazzi cameras hid outside her gates. Emma Clark said, "You can't trust them, not even your friends." The enabler fed her excess, bringing champagne instead of honesty. James Carter noted her every indulgence, sharpening his blade of truth. Olivia smiled for cameras while fear gnawed inside. Rumors bloomed, affairs, betrayals, debts. David King told audiences, "Every empire cracks from within." The glow of stardom cast longer shadows with each passing year. The first seeds of betrayal sprouted in whispers. Olivia Steele trusted the wrong hands with her empire. Olivia Steele said, "They were family. I thought they'd never hurt me." The lover tightened his grip, demanding obedience. Emma Clark begged, "You have to walk away before it's too late." But contracts had already chained her. James Carter studied documents linking her to fraud. David King's reports hinted at darker truths lurking behind her glamour. Olivia laughed on stage, but behind curtains she cried into trembling hands. The anchor of love became the weight of doom. The betrayal had begun. Her empire reached its peak just before the fall. Olivia Steele stood atop skyscraper rooftops for magazine covers, flawless and radiant. Olivia Steele said, "I gave them my soul, and they sold it for profit." Emma Clark warned, "They don't love you, Olivia, they own you." Behind her glamorous image, betrayals festered. Lovers plotted, rivals waited, lawyers sharpened knives. James Carter whispered to colleagues, "We only need time. The truth will come." David King prepared headlines ready to ignite chaos. Olivia shone brighter than ever, unaware that the brighter the flame, the closer it drew the shadows of destruction. The shine of Olivia Steele's empire began to dull under relentless pressure. Tabloids ran stories of drunken nights, unpaid debts, and shattered promises. Olivia Steele said, "They twist every shadow into a monster." Emma Clark begged, "You have to slow down before it destroys you." Yet the demands never stopped. Scripts piled, endorsements chained her schedule, and secrets pushed their way out. David King declared on television, "America's sweetheart is cracking, and the world is watching." James Carter studied, leaked accounts, every detail a nail for the coffin. Paparazzi cameras captured Olivia leaving parties with eyes clouded by exhaustion. She smiled in public, but sobbed in silence. Fame had given her wings, but now those wings burned. As weeks passed, cracks widened into fractures. Former friends sold private photos to tabloids. Olivia Steele said, "How could they betray me for a few dollars?" Emma Clark replied, "They were never your friends." David King smiled as his reports grew sharper, showing images of Olivia at her weakest. James Carter tightened his case, each betrayal feeding his arsenal. Olivia's life turned into a carnival of mockery. Her mansion gates became battlegrounds of paparazzi flashes. Olivia Steele whispered, "I can't even breathe in my own home." Fame's glow had become a cage, trapping her with enemies disguised as admirers. Interviews grew hostile, with reporters asking questions meant to wound. Olivia Steele said, "I gave you everything and still it isn't enough." Her voice cracked live on air. David King responded, "America wants the truth, not the mask." Emma Clark squeezed her hand beneath the table, silently begging her to hold on. James Carter watched the broadcast, writing notes that sharpened his case. Olivia's mask slipped as millions witnessed her trembling hands and faltering words. The media no longer adored her. They fed on her collapse like vultures. Olivia whispered, "They'll never forgive me." The walls were closing in. Olivia's inner circle fractured. Trusted allies vanished, leaving only silence. Olivia Steele said, "They left me when I needed them most." Emma Clark cried, "I'm still here, but I can't hold all this alone." Rumors spread of unpaid staff and broken contracts. David King announced her kingdom is built on sand, and the tide has come in. James Carter uncovered secret accounts and signed betrayals, piecing together a net that grew tighter each day. Olivia's empire no longer glittered, it crumbled. Every secret whispered became a headline. Every headline became a dagger. The world was watching her drown. Then came the night that changed everything. Olivia Steele sat alone when the phone rang, its sound cutting through silence like a knife. Olivia Steele whispered, "Who is this?" A trembling voice revealed evidence of a betrayal deeper than she imagined. Emma Clark rushed in as Olivia's face drained of color. David King teased in his broadcast, "Something bigger is about to break." James Carter smiled as the puzzle pieces clicked into place. Olivia Steele screamed, "No, this can't be true." The cliffhanger crashed down. A secret no one had imagined was about to burst into the light. Nothing would ever be the same again. The phone call revealed what Olivia Steele feared most. The mask she wore had already cracked beyond repair. Olivia Steele whispered, "They know everything." Emma Clark said, "What did they find?" Documents leaked online exposing secret accounts, offshore transfers, and ties to people she thought untouchable. David King shouted on his broadcast, "This is no longer about stardom, this is about crime." James Carter stood before cameras, holding evidence with satisfaction. Olivia's image as a beloved actress collapsed in minutes. Her face filled screens across the nation, not as a star, but as a criminal mastermind. Olivia Steele screamed, "This isn't who I am." Yet the world no longer believed her words. The twist was sharper than any rumor before. A leaked video showed Olivia Steele arguing violently with a man tied to organized crime. Olivia Steele shouted, "You promised this would stay buried." The man's face blurred, but his threats were not. Emma Clark gasped, "You were involved with them?" David King declared, "This is the smoking gun we've waited for." James Carter said, "Her mask is off, and what lies beneath is corruption." The footage spread faster than wildfire, shared across millions of devices. Olivia's past was no longer whispered gossip. It was proof, damning and undeniable. The revelation tore apart what little was left of her defenses. Olivia Steele said, "They set me up, I swear." Emma Clark cried, "You hid too much, Olivia, and now it's all bleeding out." The media framed her as a fraud hiding behind glamour. David King's headline screamed, "From starlet to criminal queen." James Carter tightened his grip, preparing for charges that went beyond scandal to federal crime. Olivia's empire no longer shimmered. It rotted in the public eye. She clung to Emma's hand, whispering, "I can't survive this storm." But the storm had already swallowed her. What the world thought it knew was only the surface. Evidence showed charities Olivia Steele supported were shells for laundering. Olivia Steele said, "I never knew. It wasn't supposed to be this." Emma Clark screamed, "You signed everything." David King reported, "The charities were lies, every dollar tainted." James Carter told press, "She cannot claim ignorance, she is complicit." Olivia's name, once a beacon of glamour, now dripped with betrayal. She faced not just scandal, but the weight of the law, chains closing around her as the truth pulled her into the abyss. The twist cut deeper with betrayal from within. A voice once trusted turned against her. Olivia Steele said, "Not you, anyone but you." The silent witness stepped forward with testimony that shook the case. Emma Clark whispered, "We're finished." David King declared, "This is bigger than we imagined. Betrayal at the core." James Carter announced, "The final piece is in place." Olivia's empire wasn't destroyed by strangers. It was burned by those closest. She stared into the cameras, eyes hollow, realizing the nightmare had only just begun. The trial began with cameras flashing like lightning, each burst striking Olivia Steele as if branding her guilt. Olivia Steele whispered, "Every eye in the world is on me." Emma Clark clutched her arm, trembling as the court filled with reporters. David King announced outside, "The trial of the decade has begun." James Carter stood confidently before the jury, his voice sharp. This woman built an empire of lies. Olivia's heart pounded as witnesses lined up against her. The glamorous star was gone. In her place sat a prisoner in plain gray. The empire she built was now ash under her feet. Every word in the courtroom cut deeper than steel. Olivia Steele said, "They're twisting everything." Her voice cracked as the prosecutor presented damning evidence. Emma Clark whispered, "You have to hold it together." David King reported, "The jury is visibly shaken by the evidence." James Carter thundered, "She used her fame to shield her crimes." Olivia felt the floor beneath her vanish as the silent witness testified, voice trembling but certain. Gasps echoed as betrayal unfolded in real time. The cameras captured every twitch of her face, every tear, every faltering breath. The performance of her life was no act. It was survival. The betrayal that shattered Olivia came not from strangers, but from someone she trusted most. Olivia Steele gasped, "Not you." As Emma Clark took the stand. Emma Clark said, "I never wanted this, but I cannot lie anymore." Olivia's world collapsed in that instant. David King shouted into his broadcast, "Her closest ally has turned against her." James Carter pressed forward. "The truth is undeniable now." Olivia's tears burned as Emma detailed hidden accounts and whispered deals. The court fell silent, every word cutting her deeper than any headline. Olivia Steele screamed, "You were my family!" The courtroom became a stage of destruction. Olivia Steele said, "I am not guilty." Her voice echoed through the chamber, but no one believed her. David King told the world, "Every headline is another nail in her coffin." Emma Clark wept quietly on the stand, unable to look her in the eye. James Carter raised his hand and said, "The evidence is overwhelming. Justice demands she answer for every crime." Olivia sat motionless, cameras devouring her anguish. Every camera flash was a dagger, every whisper a final judgment. The star had turned into a shadow before the world's eyes. The climax erupted with brutal finality. The jury foreman read the verdict as silence suffocated the courtroom. Olivia Steele said, "Please, no." Emma Clark lowered her head, sobbing softly. David King announced live, "The verdict is guilty." James Carter closed his folder, eyes gleaming with victory. Olivia's world shattered as the gavel slammed like thunder. Her empire was gone, her name poisoned, her legacy turned to ruin. Olivia whispered, "The verdict was not the end. It was only the beginning of my ruin." The words echoed, carving themselves into history as the trial ended, but her nightmare endured. The mansion that once glowed like a palace was now a hollow carcass of silence. Olivia Steele wandered through empty halls, her steps echoing like forgotten applause. Olivia Steele whispered, "This place feels like a tomb." Dust-cloaked velvet drapes, chandeliers sagged with cobwebs, and portraits of her smiling face mocked her downfall. Emma Clark said softly, "You built all this, and now it's gone." Olivia's heart twisted. Every corner carried laughter long extinguished. David King reported outside, "Her empire has rotted to ruins, a monument to failure." James Carter declared, "Her wealth is stripped, her legacy erased." Olivia reached for a golden frame, her trembling fingers brushing a photograph of her younger self, radiant and invincible. She whispered, "I thought I'd live forever in their love." The silence answered with cruelty, reminding her that fame was as fragile as glass. Fame had once wrapped Olivia Steele in thunderous applause, but now silence weighed heavier than any insult. Olivia Steele scrolled through endless feeds of ridicule, whispers of hate echoing through every cruel comment. Olivia Steele murmured, "They loved me until they devoured me." Emma Clark said, "They didn't love you, they loved the mask." The glow of the phone screen reflected her hollow eyes, once radiant, now broken. David King announced on live television, "She is no longer a star but a cautionary symbol." James Carter stated, "Her fame cannot shield her, it only exposes her deeper." Olivia stared at images of fans burning posters and former allies selling her secrets. Each notification buzzed like a knife carving her soul. She whispered, "Was I ever real to them?" The silence that followed was louder than any standing ovation, deafening and merciless. Desperate for redemption, Olivia Steele faced cameras again, her voice fragile yet determined. Olivia Steele said, "I want them to remember I'm human." Her words cracked under the weight of public judgment. Emma Clark whispered through the glass of the studio booth, "They don't want your truth, Olivia. They only want blood." David King smirked on a rival broadcast, saying, "Her plea is nothing more than desperation dressed as sincerity." James Carter dismissed her interview with chilling precision. Words cannot erase the ledger of evidence. Olivia stared into the lens, her eyes hollow with exhaustion, yet flickering with the final embers of defiance. The world didn't cheer. Instead, social feeds flooded with ridicule, memes mocking her desperation, headlines twisting every syllable. She whispered, "They've already buried me." And yet, she still fought to breathe, clawing against the smothering silence of disgrace. Exile became Olivia Steele's only escape, a quiet surrender cloaked in shadows. Olivia Steele said, "I have to disappear before they bury me alive." Emma Clark replied, "If you leave, there's no coming back." Olivia stuffed belongings into suitcases, her hands trembling. The glittering city outside her window had once been her kingdom. Now it was a cage of flashing cameras and venomous whispers. David King told viewers, "She has vanished from the spotlight, running from her past." James Carter warned on live broadcast, "Disappearance won't erase her guilt. She cannot outrun the truth." Olivia pressed her forehead against the car window as the rain slid down in streaks, reflecting neon signs of the city she once owned. Her face looked less like a star and more like a shadow, a ghost still breathing. Fame had once been her crown, now it was her exile. Time passed, but Olivia Steele's ruin lingered like a scar carved into history. She sat in a corner cafe, unrecognized, a ghost in plain sight. Olivia Steele whispered, "I survived, but I don't know if I'm alive." Emma Clark replied, "Survival still means something." The waitress glanced past her, unaware she once served the brightest star in Hollywood. David King concluded, "She now exists in obscurity, remembered not as a legend, but as a warning." James Carter said, "Her story is the price of unchecked ambition." Olivia stirred her coffee absently, staring into the steam as if it might carry away her past. She once stood beneath golden lights, now she drowned in shadows. Her eyes carried no fire, no glamour, only emptiness. Fame had not killed her, betrayal had. Yet the cruelest weight was not the world's hatred, it was her own. The courthouse steps became Olivia Steele's final stage. Cameras flashed as she emerged, shoulders slumped beneath a black coat, eyes downcast. Olivia Steele whispered, "This is the last time they'll see me like this." Emma Clark stayed close, her grip steady but eyes broken. David King announced, "The fallen star exits into history not as an icon, but as a ghost of herself." James Carter declared, "The justice system has spoken, but her ruin has only begun." Each step echoed, stone against silence, the sound of a woman walking into exile. Reporters didn't cheer. They didn't boo. They stared as though watching a funeral. Olivia walked down, every step a nail in her coffin, her former empire dissolving with each footfall. She whispered again, "The end of me is here." But the silence of the world confirmed it had ended long before. The cameras followed Olivia Steele into the night, recording every shadow she cast. Olivia Steele whispered, "I will never be free of them." Emma Clark urged, "Don't look back, just keep walking." David King reported, "The starlet's descent is complete. She no longer owns her story." James Carter added, "Her sentence isn't years, it's life under shame." Streetlights stretched her figure into fragile fragments across wet pavement. The city that once celebrated her now swallowed her whole. Olivia's breaths fogged in the cold air, her coat trailing like a shroud. The stares of strangers pierced her, but no one spoke. She became part of the night itself, fading into it like mist. Fame had given her immortality, but infamy chained her forever. Her silence spoke louder than any confession, louder than her final verdict. Alone in her apartment, Olivia Steele stared at a cracked mirror. Her reflection looked unfamiliar, fragmented by broken glass. Olivia Steele whispered, "I don't know who she is anymore." Emma Clark replied, "You're still Olivia, just shattered." David King broadcasted, "Her beauty has rotted into tragedy." James Carter told the press, "Her story ends not with triumph, but with disgrace." Olivia raised her trembling hand to the mirror, touching the fractured face of her former self. Her eyes searched for the woman who once lit red carpets, but only saw a stranger. Her reflection was no longer a star. It was her judge, jury, and executioner. What haunted her most was not the cameras or the headlines, but the reflection that no longer forgave her. The cruelest revelation struck her under a quiet sky. Olivia Steele said, "They didn't destroy me, I did." Emma Clark pleaded, "Don't say that. It wasn't all you." David King told his audience, "Her downfall was inevitable, carved from within." James Carter stated, "Ambition without limits always ends in collapse." Olivia walked across a rooftop, her coat whipping in the cold wind. She gazed at the skyline, the city that once crowned her, now indifferent. Her eyes reflected not fear, but recognition. The truth gnawed at her chest. The enemy had always been inside. Fame didn't kill her, betrayal didn't kill her, self-destruction did. She whispered to herself, "This was my hand all along," and the wind carried her words into silence. The final echo was not a scream, but a whisper that lingered like a curse. Olivia Steele said, "The story isn't over." Emma Clark gasped, "What do you mean?" David King reported to millions. She vanished after the last cameras turned away. James Carter warned, "If the world believes it knows everything, it is wrong." Olivia's figure slipped into the alley, swallowed by darkness, leaving behind uncertainty more chilling than guilt. Her disappearance was not closure. It was a question without an answer. The world replayed her fall endlessly, yet whispers of her survival became folklore. Olivia Steele's last act was not destruction, but haunting ambiguity. She had been judged, condemned, and erased, yet she left behind the possibility of a return. That lingering uncertainty became the final blow, one that echoed louder than her verdict.